Well, hello and welcome. It's another OEWeek live webcast. I'm Alan Levine from OEGlobal, and thank you for joining us in a completely open and unstructured conversation that I promise will be interesting because we have interesting people here. And so we're here to talk about the work that we do in online communities and whatever you consider online communities. And some of this came out of conversations I had early in January with Jocelyn Miyara at Creative Commons, because they're starting up a new platform, and also Kathleen Fitzpatrick for her work at the Knowledge Commons that I've been a huge fan of for a long time. And it just made sense to sort of like, there's so many more people that I know make these efforts, and I thought it would be a great informal conversation. And so we're just here to have talk live, and people from listening, watching in YouTube. We can already see Jennerin is out there from Creative Commons. So thank you, Jennerin Wetzler, for being part of this. And I'll hand off the first intros, and then the person can call someone else to speak up, just to introduce the next. And of course, let us know who you are, where you are, and just maybe mention the community or communities that you're going to talk about. So I'll start first with Kathleen, because she's in an airport and apparently Oprah's watching her.
I am literally in the Detroit airport, and Oprah is right here. I'm Kathleen Fitzpatrick. As Ellen said, I'm project director on Knowledge Commons, which has been in development in its various iterations since about 2014. And we host both a platform at that URL, hcommons.org, that supports websites and profiles and group discussions and a whole range of other scholarly and discussions with knowledge creators wherever they come from. They need not come from universities. We also host a Mastodon instance at hcommons.social. And these two communities are really in dialogue with one another. We're hoping to bring them a little bit more technically into dialogue with one another in the coming months. So that is my introduction. And I'm going to popcorn it now. Is that right, Alan?
Yeah.
I'll hand it to Maren.
Thanks, Kathleen, and hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Maren Deepwell, and I'm currently working as a consultant with Reclaim Hosting on a open community of practice and open education, where we're supporting fellow bloggers to share practice and keep the spirit of blogging alive. But I've worked with a whole lot of different communities throughout my career, here mostly in the UK around open education, but also outside of higher education and further education and lifelong learning. So I'm very excited to have this conversation here today. And I'm going to pass it over to Todd Conaway. Hey, Todd, great to see you.
Hey there, my name's Todd. I play with faculty, but I think I get pennies for being an instructional designer, or at least that's what my job thing says. I am here in the University of Washington-Bothell. It's a small campus, and I get to play with faculty, which is just almost as much fun as playing back in the day as a middle school and high school teacher. So I feel very fortunate to do the work I do. Oh, well, I don't know if I call it work, but yeah. That's what I do. Let's see. Amanda?
Hi, thanks, Todd. I'm Amanda Coolidge. I am currently the VP of Strategic Engagement and Growth at Pressbooks, formerly with BC Campus. So very happy to be here with everyone. And at Pressbooks, I know I shared, there's sort of three major communities that I always like to talk about. One is because I really think that culture drives community, and that is in particular our internal Slack, which I know is a private group, but at the same time, I really see so much engagement and community building within that. But another one is our Pressbooks forum, which I'm putting the link to in the chat. And the second one is our public GitHub repository that I also wanted to share, and I can talk more about those later. But I'm based in Victoria, British Columbia, and happy to be with everyone today. I'll pass it to Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Blicher. I'm the director of the Community College Consortium for OER, which is a regional node or division for Open Education Global. And we're specifically focused on North America. Right now, we're very focused on the US and Canada, but in the future, one step at a time, I would like to be much more inclusive of the entire North American continent. You know, before I started in this role about 2.5 years ago, CCCOER was already very much well established. And so when I came into the role, I really had to take a look at what I could add to this, because it was already a very engaged and thriving community. And so I'll be talking about that a little bit and the changes that I've made. And yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this group and to just talk about community building in general. And I will pass it off to Apurva.
Thank you, Heather. Hi, everybody. Good morning from Toronto, Canada. My name is Apurva Ashok. I'm the Executive Director of the Rebus Foundation. We are a Canadian charity that likes to think of how communities can leverage education as a catalyst for positive change. Today, I'm going to try to bring in some of my perspectives and learnings from running a public forum called the Rebus Community Forum that runs on Discourse to bring educators who want to publish OER together. Like Amanda, I'll also share some insights on hosting and running our Rebus Foundation Slack channel. And again, thinking about the importance of online connection and community building in remote work environments. And I'll also try to bring in some perspectives of how we think of classrooms as communities. So Rebus runs professional development programs for librarians, faculty members, instructional designers. So Todd's idea of playful communities and playful learning is something that I'm going to try to talk about as I think of our cohorts and our facilitator networks. And I will pass it to Jocelyn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Miyara. I'm joining here from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm the community manager at Creative Commons. So I've been with CC for about 3 years and in this role for 1, and really working to keep this community lively and also acknowledge that there is ongoing change. We had this very structured global network of regional chapters, and some of those are still really active, some of them less so. And really thinking about new ways to engage and try to de-silo the work between different open access movements as it relates to Creative Commons work. And of course, grappling with everything that's changing in the age of AI. We're doing a lot of work in that area, and something that our community cares about in many different ways. And so trying to be a good facilitator of those conversations as it relates to our work and outside of our work. Am I the last to go? Maybe Maren?
Yeah.
Next?
No, we got Maren. We got everybody popcorn. To thank you for the popcorn play. I just pipe in that with OEGlobal, that a lot of my focus is we have also a discourse platform called OEG Connect, and it's a mess, but I really enjoy it, and so some of it is like we can start with the hard things, but I also noticed again in hearing everybody, we're not talking about platforms and tools, which is quite refreshing. And also, like, to make point that private spaces are incredibly important, like in our work. And so it seems less about like identifying ourselves in these platforms, because we flow between them. But still, I guess I want to start out like with the question of, why do you do this, and what are some really, I already got a hint of it. Like, what are the really why do you put all this energy into it? Because it's a lot of work. And maybe if people can share sort of like some, let's start with the good stuff first, like some positive outcomes of this. And I'm just gonna leave it open. I'm not calling on people.
Well, I'll jump in. I before joining OEGlobal, I was a librarian, and I've spent most of my career working in community college environments. But I've been a part of the CCCOER community off and on throughout those years, and I've experienced working in university settings. So I've seen the various differences between those two spaces and the kinds of expectations that are asked of people that work in open in both of those scenarios. And so I come here with a lot of knowledge and understanding and empathy, because I know how hard community college people are working with open, and also those in universities or smaller colleges. And so one of the reasons, one of the things that I think about with the CCCOER community is providing spaces where people can ask for help, whether it's through our Google group, I call it our listserv, but also having that open beyond community colleges, because I really want to emphasize those that are in universities and community colleges working together on projects, because I really think that's the future of where this is going, beyond transfer agreements between community colleges and universities. Like, we should be working together now, and I see that happening, but I think even taking it a step further. And so coming in with that understanding of how the community works and what is expected of them, I think really makes me passionate about wanting to make professional development webinars and other opportunities available to as many people as I can.
Fantastic. And because I said so many things, I just launched the question of the why, and what is really positive about this, even some anecdotal experiences. But again, it's a ton of work, folks, right? All the heads are nodding.
I'll jump in. I think for us, especially with our community forum within Pressbooks, so the idea is that the Pressbooks forum is an opportunity for people who use Pressbooks or network managers to sort of put in questions, or we provide information to them. And one of the purposes behind that is really to enrich the community so that the community is supporting one another. And the idea is to create those connections and those collaborations. But it can be really hard because, as we know, if the online platform or whatever you're using is not necessarily embedded directly into one's day-to-day workflow, I find it can be really hard to engage people within those forum communities. So that's something I'd love to hear about. I realize I'm supposed to say something positive, but I would love to hear about how people do that and embrace it. I also think, one of the things with open source development is, from the get-go, from way back when open source was first started, the whole purpose was community ownership, community building, community creation together or adaptation together. And so to me, that's something of the positive, to not only be able to mentor and support each other, but also to work together in co-creation.
Oh, sorry, Kathleen, you go ahead. And I'll jump in.
Okay. It's after the silence, suddenly we all have things to say. I just wanted to jump on that to say that absolutely that sense of community co-creation and ownership of the space is absolutely crucial to thinking about how these communities operate. Knowledge Commons began its life as a project of the Modern Language Association. Back when I was working there, started out as MLA Commons. It was just a platform intended for ongoing member-to-member communication among the members of that scholarly society, so that they could maintain their conversations that might start at the convention season, but keep them going year round. And so as we've grown, first from MLA Commons to Humanities Commons, where we brought in some other organizations, and now to Knowledge Commons, because we're reaching out beyond the humanities as well. We're still trying to maintain a focus on how to provide spaces where small communities of practice can come together and have inward-facing conversations, while at the same time then using the work that they're able to collaborate on in those spaces as open, outward-facing publications. So it's navigating that balance between the public and the private, or the internally facing and the externally facing, that we're constantly trying to do with the platform. And one component of that is really ensuring that the organizations that are part of our network, the ones that we're asking to financially sustain the platform, feel a real ownership of the platform, and therefore are able to, like, they participate in our governance processes. They have a real stake in the development of both the platform and the building of the communities and how the communities get used. And I think that navigation for sustainability of community ownership is really, really crucial.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And also the governance piece is so important, but it is, I think, also necessary to think about it like a practice, like Amanda was asking earlier, you know, how do we get people to include being part of a community in their day-to-day work? And now that digital productivity is accelerating so much, and we have a lot of tools that sort of make things even easier, if you like, I think the time and effort it takes to really be part of a community is becoming, you know, for some, like, seen like a luxury. So I think one of the things that I'm inspired by when I see people in our communities of practice or in the DS-106 Daily Create Challenge is to help advocate to existing and new members why it's important to be in a community, and what the kind of benefits of it are, but also what the effort is that's required to be put in.
Is that a hand raise, Todd?
Sorry.
I call on Todd.
Thanks, Alan. So I think I have, over the years, I mean, what I'm doing now, this is like my favorite part of my job, and like nobody knows I'm doing it, right? I feel like I have somehow wound in these external communities into my work in a way that I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't participating in these communities, because that's where I have learned to do the very job I guess I get paid to do. In my case here, and I'll go back to the comment I made there about the cyber salon, one of the things that I think has been helpful to me is that I've taken people like Alan, who has introduced me to everybody I know, and taken that sort of connectivity that he's brought to my life and shared it with the learning community that I've been involved with locally, right here, with faculty right here. That has been one of the most amazing things in our little community over the years. Is I've just asked people to come and share with us what they do, and like what a great thing that is when people are willing to do that. And so I think I've just learned to make this piece of community part of my job, and that's how I get to operate at my 62 years of age. So there you have it.
Thanks, Todd. Your check is in the mail.
Thanks.
Todd's a longtime friend, and we kid each other a lot, like most people here. I have to hear from Jocelyn, not to put you on the spot, because you got handed like a big plate to deal with. I mean, and Creative Commons, they dealt with there was like the platform, and people hated it, and then it moved to Slack, and then people said you can't be on Slack, and now you made another migration. Again, not to focus on the platform, but you have to deal with such a broad reach, and I wonder how you kind of like keep your sanity doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it took making some tough decisions around how we were going to set up this new platform. So we migrated to a platform called Zulip, which is, less popular, less common, but it was really values aligned. So it's an open access platform. It's one in which there are threaded discussion topics that we really like the ability to do that and kind of keep our conversations organized. We also made the decision to have a light intake process. So instead of having this be something that anyone could click a link to just join, that actually we have a Google form and I'm manually reviewing those responses to make sure that they're real humans who are actually interested in open access. The bar is very low, but just making sure that they're not bots or spammers. And so far what's been really lovely about our migration to this new platform is that there's no spam so far. It's only been maybe 6 months. But we're still kind of figuring out how to get an uptick in activity, trying to encourage people to share, trying to encourage people to be on it. Sometimes I think about, I wonder if we were on a platform like, say, Discord, where people already maybe are there all the time, if we'd have more activity. But it isn't values aligned. And the reason we moved in the first place is that Slack was starting to try to charge us to be on the platform. And we worry that though Discord doesn't do that right now, it's because it's proprietary, it's possible that could happen in the future. And so it's an ongoing process. I think it's going to continue to take reminders for people to use it. And then I hope as we use it that other people might start using the platform and that maybe it's just a place that people are more frequently. So I'm excited to see how it keeps growing. I'm continuing to try new things and really happy for suggestions and new ideas. So far, it's been really interesting to see it start to grow. Still kind of in nascent stages.
I would say keep throwing as much spaghetti against the wall. And then, I don't know, like after you're so frustrated, think this isn't working, like down the line, something else pops up unexpected. And that's some of the excitement.
I think that's, Jocelyn had an excellent point about how communities really are just groups of people, right? There is going to be an ebb and flow that happens when people gather, whether it's in person or online. Rebus certainly has a long history of attempting to use many different platforms to engage educators on a number of topics, from the details of OER publishing all the way to facilitation and community building and program management. I keep going back to what Heather started us off with, is we are here to create support networks and help people share knowledge with each other, help them build relationships that will live outside of the community spaces and advance society and all of us to, I think, a new world of education where open is the norm. So we as community managers or I'm going to use your gardening metaphor, community gardeners, Alan, need to be able to pivot and shift as the conditions around us change and move with the community to new spaces if that's where they're leading us.
Thank you. I think sometimes like some of the best things that happen is when those emerge, and it tends to happen. You can't count on it within your community who kind of take the lead and become the active. And there's like there's a fall off of participation. And I forget though, like a lot of people get a lot of value out of, and they always call themselves lurkers, which of course is not the best term, but they're there, they're present, but maybe they're not always visible. And that's okay. And I don't know about you, but like I have to remind myself that a lot. But when those some people just naturally emerge as the ones who, of course, you have the oversharers, which you have to deal with. But somewhere in the middle are the people who are just like small catalysts. And I tell you, when you get a few of them in there, it just becomes magic. Do you have that experience? Anybody?
I have to say that every year I start out by sending out an email to the CCCOER Google group and just saying, I appreciate all of you, whether you stay silent and you just read, whether you participate and actively help and guide other people, it doesn't matter. As long as you're here, you're a part of the community, and we appreciate you. And that's been, well, you talked about like magical moments. That's been some of the things that I've experienced very recently. I decided to try out some new programming formats. And so it's wonderful. Like our webinars and the traditional formats of presentations are wonderful. And I appreciate those people, but I decided to try and put together these different formats, and the engagement has been like amazing. And it's not about the numbers of people that show up. It's about the engagement and just the conversations that people are having in these unrecorded webinars that we've been putting on. And I've actually I have this habit of reaching out to people if I really like what they're talking about, and just being like, hey, do you want to have an informal Zoom? Because I really want to hear more about what you think about this. And just meeting so many people that normally wouldn't speak up, and then they do speak up, and what they're saying is amazing. It has been pretty magical.
I love this idea that the ephemeral connections can be so, so powerful. And I always struggle with finding balance between, keeping that sort of spirit of kind of in the momentness kind of alive and getting people engaging, but also trying to make things accessible for people asynchronously across different time zones, or, maybe individuals who don't want to or can't join in the live conversation. So I'd be interested to hear how other people are finding the sort of balance between, live and visible, or synchronous and asynchronous. Like, there's a lot of interesting things in what you just said, Heather.
Zoom's killing me. I mean, honestly, like I love technology. I literally stood on an old broken computer monitor one time with my Stark Captain Kirk shirt on, and I duct taped a tricorder to my hand, and I told faculty that Skype is this amazing thing. You can go talk to other people in other parts of the world and bring them to you, and everything was so rosy. And, I mean, we are Wally. We are, we're not good at not abusing things. And so I have a feeling that like the TV and all the darn tricky, shiny objects before it and after it, it's going to take us a while to understand how to wisely leverage online face-to-face meetings. As an instructional designer, it reminds me of the many faculty who, after COVID, were all 100% perfectly fine with teaching online courses. And what that meant to them, of course, was that you just jump on Zoom and do the same thing you did in the classroom, and maybe put something in Canvas or your local LMS, and you were brilliant. What could go wrong? I think here, for me, I still, as much as I love this, and as much as it's a part of who I want to be in my work, I still call Alan on the telephone, and that makes me even happier than seeing him sometimes. I don't know why that is, but I am seriously in need of more like hugs, more human interaction these days, to balance what I would consider a kind of a lopsided working environment in Zoom meetings, one after the other all day long.
I want to echo that because I feel like I've been in much the same place, that the return to office has had some real benefits in terms of the working community that I'm in day to day. Just having people who I run into in the hallway and can have a quick conversation with matters enormously. But Todd, when you said that Zoom was killing you, my brain immediately thought, actually what's killing me is Teams. We're a Microsoft campus, and so we are in teams all day, every day, except that the project that I run, Knowledge Commons, we have a team that works on it, all of whom are in teams. And so we're all spending all this time in teams, but we can't talk to anyone in our community via Teams. We have to use another platform for that because Teams is set up to be inward facing for the campus. And when we had a conversation with our IT folks about, like, we've got collaborators who are not MSU employees, how do we bring them into these conversations? They looked at me like I had grown a second head. Like, why on earth would you want to talk to somebody who's not on your own campus? And that sense of, like, the boundaries around particular kinds of communities for various sorts of online work can be really hard, especially in those spaces where you really can't be in person, where you need to use the online affordances. So finding ways to work with what our campus will let us do versus, what our community actually needs is always a challenge.
Can I follow? I'm curious. I have a question for Jocelyn, if that's okay, Alan, for me to ask the question. But Jocelyn, so I'm very curious about this notion of, this more hugs, wanting very intentional in-person activity, or even like phone call activity, or pen pals, or writing, or, all of these different modes. There's something I saw recently that somebody posted on Instagram, like, there are so many stories of hope happening out in the world, like hopeful stories, but yet, and like where communities are gathering in hopeful presence and really supporting each other. So I'm curious, like, from a global, where you have a very global platform, how do you foster that sort of like sense of hope and sense of like, not that death by Teams, not that death by Zoom activity? Like, what's some of your strategies?
I mean, I think I'm very much still learning. What's kind of interesting is in my personal life, in my free time, I host an in-person event pretty regularly. And so I often draw inspiration from that, actually, in the virtual space, and sort of think about ways that I can prompt people to engage and encourage people to participate. Sometimes that's, just knowing somebody is off doing something and really encouraging them to share. We have a Medium blog that serves as a way for people to publish their own work and share about projects that they're doing, or just think pieces about something that they're working on. So someone, for example, published a really wonderful piece about how OER really supports anti-racism. So getting people to really share what they're doing and inspiring others to either, do something similar in their own camps, or share their own work. But I think it's really tricky. What I like to see, and another thing that I think has really helped me and inspired me was I got to visit one of our chapters hosting Open Culture Week in Uruguay in November, which was really wonderful. And what was amazing there is to see this, over a decades long small community struggle with, continuing to grow, staying kind of fresh, bringing in new segments of the community. And I think sometimes that work only really can happen in person, in smaller communities, really on the ground. And so what I'm also trying to do is we have a couple of, we're going to have a couple of regional events that we'll support this year. We'll launch that application process soon, really encouraging folks to, in their local communities, support that kind of activity. So I think my hope is that it can be really a hybrid approach, where the online is really reflecting what's happening in person, that the people who are doing work on the ground can share that work and inspire others to do the same in their communities. But I think, a lot of that feeling that you're talking about, Amanda, the sort of inspiration, the hugs, that can only happen in person. And I'd really like the virtual space to be a place where folks are encouraged to do work in their local communities that fits the needs of those communities.
Well said. I was thinking, a while ago, I co-taught a class with Mia Zamora at Kane University, and I did it all remotely from Arizona. And so I beamed into the class with students, and I had an opportunity to travel, and we didn't tell them. And I showed up and I hid in a closet, and we were having our last day potluck, and I emerged from the closet, and it was just, it was really a magical moment. And I know that's not possible for everyone, but I think from, what you're saying, Jocelyn, is when you can do that, it can be magnified by that online experience first, and then it just flows backward.
And just to jump on that, I just wanted to say, whenever I get the chance or the invitation to go speak somewhere, I really do jump on that. And it's true. It's like the in-person experience. Like last fall, I got to speak at the Michigan OER State Conference, and getting to do that and getting to then stay and watch the presentations and meet people and connect in that way was very special and really impacted me. And it was a really good reminder of what I'm trying to do online. And now, of course, with Open Education Week, the concept of the OEWeek Ambassador Program, it's not perfect, and we'll see how it turns out. But it started out as an idea of how I really wanted to figure out a way to create this feel-good experience where I could really involve the CCCOER committee members and volunteers in not adding to their workload, but for OEWeek, but just like putting it out there, like, hey, we care about what people are doing, and we want you to know, even if it's a tag on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. It's like we have to do what we can and be flexible and see how it goes and see how it changes up for next year.
I wanted to ask, speaking of that, how you deal and look with, because the blend over, or maybe it's like the attention people put into social media, and how you try to balance that. And it's a tricky space. And it also factors in, it's easy to forget sometimes, but for folks of my vintage here, there's so many more people now involved, which is so good. But it's not like there used to be reliable places you could go to hear everything, and that's no more. It's all scattered and distributed, which is both good and bad. So how do you deal with the kind of the I don't want to say federated, but the distributed nature of where we have these communications?
I think one thing I have, and I'm going to reach forward and grab this right off of my monitor here, is I have this sticky note right here. It's been on my monitor for, I think, almost probably 18 years. And that came from a conversation that a colleague back in Arizona and I had about, we realized that we'd made all the videos, we'd made all the PDFs and all the websites, and we'd run all the workshops, and there was still something missing. And we worked at a small, little liberal arts or not community college. And the three represented the goal for every day to go out and meet somebody and talk to them. No topic, it didn't have to be about anything, but it was just talking to them. And that was the goal, 3 of those a day. Get out of your office, get out of your home, get out of your wherever you are, and go somewhere where, in our case, we knew the faculty were mostly in their offices, and so we would knock on their doors and literally became known for bothering them. But every time they opened the doors, like, I was going to call you, they always have questions for the local instructional designer person. And so I think, and that was at a time too, when I was I was knee deep in DS 106 and Lisa Lane's thing. And that was just when my eyes were getting open to this amazing space called the internet, with so many miraculous people doing such amazing work. We still kind of wanted to be on the ground, listening to our colleagues. So that's what the number 3 was for me. And that's one way I've done that. And it's still true here. That's my goal. Hardly ever happens, but it's the goal.
What was the name of that old, like you used to be able to, if you followed blogs, for example, you used to be able to have like a reader or something that would, let you know if a new blog post, what was that called again?
RSS reader?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
a blog roll.
Yeah,
Blog
just
roll.
like the RSS feed or something. But,
Yeah.
but I feel like we lost that, like something, there was a tool that I used to use anyway, and it went away. But I'm kind of resonating, like I'm thinking back to, the Wayback, going back the Wayback Machine in my own head. And like, just thinking about Todd, what you said is when you used to kind of like, or what Alan was saying, like you used to always go to sort of one place. And I remember going to my RSS feed and then, reading Alan's blog, reading, Brian Lamb's blog, reading Maren's blog, like reading all of these blogs and then, always being updated as to what the thing was. And to me, I guess I technically was like a lurker because I just read them, but it was always very like interesting. And I just got the information I needed or wanted or read about somebody's life. And yeah, I mean, I miss that. Like I kind of miss the blogging days.
They still work. I use them every day.
But in a way, I feel like we're coming back. There's a return of storytelling that I'm seeing on the internet now. And I think we are longing for that kind of connection with one another again. So I'm thinking of tools like Substack, for instance, which is effectively a blogging platform mixed with an email listserv, mixed with an online community. So I don't know. I think there's hope yet, Amanda, for the return of you to lurk on blogs.
And I guess I think now we have a new generation of writers who are becoming much more concerned about their own domain, right? Because we all have seen the exodus of different news platforms and newsletter platforms, and how social networks who you might have relied on became something uninhabitable, pretty quickly. And so I think there's a new generation of writers out there who are thinking, where can I have a voice? And I'm really reminded in this conversation of a keynote Bonnie Stewart gave last year at the Reclaim Open conference. And Bonnie was talking about, I can't paraphrase this very well. I will post a link in the chat. Her keynote is online and it's so worth watching. But Bonnie was reminding us not only how important it is to kind of be nostalgic about celebrating how good a period of more open web used to be, but also how important it is to keep talking about the possibilities and opening up the perspectives for generations that are just discovering openness of the web, that are just discovering how to have a voice and how to make that heard, whether that's politically or socially or education practice. So I will post some links in the chat, but I think that's definitely really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I suspect I might be on the younger side of the folks in this chat, and so kind of more of a digital native. And one of the things that's really interesting to see, talking about Substack, for example, is there is this distribution of where to find things, but we chose not to use Substack as an example because they're platforming white supremacists. And so we made a values-based decision to be on Medium, where there are far fewer people, but it's more values aligned. And I think those are the kind of decisions that have been really tricky. We can only be in so many places. We want to be in spaces that are values aligned. And sometimes that choice is at the cost of audience. And so I think that happens with social media as well. And it makes it very tricky to find the places where the people are at, find the places that we see the people that we want to see, and get all the information that we can without stretching ourselves too thin.
All right, folks. I'm learning. I'm trying to learn to leave like silence. You gotta leave room sometimes for people to say things, and not
I
just
think
always butt in.
I would like to like I think I'm just sitting with what Jocelyn said and just wanted to sort of give like appreciation, I guess is the word, to what Creative Commons is doing in terms of, I think you're also providing a very wonderful like social justice literacy lens to this work, because the other thing I think about is there's so many different platforms out there. We often rush to the first one that's out there, but then you're like, I don't know, is this person like, has this person been in the Epstein files? Are they part of the white supremacist league? Like, I don't know all of these things, but to have a community or an organization say, we are choosing this platform because, and even if that's at risk of losing some people, I think it's so powerful and like helps just knowledge building and knowledge sharing about like what are we here to do and what are we here to serve, you know? So I just wanted to say, great job.
I'm thinking, what am I thinking? What are your go-tos like when you really want to like reach for something to generate some community activity? What do you find that works?
I'll jump in here. I want to share two ideas. One is a remixer, the fabulous remixer machine created by Brian Mathers, whose work I think many of us here are familiar with. It's a super fun, creative little tool that's free to use, although you can obviously support Brian's work as well. And it's led to the most wonderful connections and conversations in some of the open education communities I've been part of. So I think that's really fantastic. And I think to come back to Amanda's point around blogging, so I often have really great conversations with people based around blog posts. And sometimes I write a blog post and I'm like, oh, no one's going to read this. No one's going to care. And then it's usually those blog posts where I'm kind of, sharing something I might feel vulnerable about or unsure about. But then someone gets back to me and they're like, oh, that's really resonated with me. And, the conversation kind of starts from there. So I think putting your own best foot forward and actually taking an active part in the communities you want to energize is a great approach for me.
Email still works. As much as I hate to say that, email still works. I have one thing I do is probably less around any particular place, but for example, on Monday, I noticed that there was a speaker in one of these sessions for OEWeek who had the word creative in a title that was around teaching or pedagogy or something like that. Never met the person in my life, but found their email and emailed them saying, hey, I've been doing some things around creative pedagogies with this lady named Natalie Tassler in Glasgow, and would you be up for chatting with me sometime? And she had no idea who I was. But we're meeting in about 3 weeks. And weirdly, Natalie's a good friend of hers. So, you never know how this works. And I'll say right here in this room, I've known the name Amanda Coolidge for probably 15 years. I've never, ever met her, even like this, that I remember. But I emailed her, I don't know, a month ago or something like that, and shared the website of our learning community. And I'm like, we're just trying to have campfire stories here in Zoom land. And we want to hear a story about something. And she's like, okay, so it's those kind of like, I think Alan would always say those weird, like serendipitous moments, but I think you can kind of push those if you just send somebody an email and it works. So yeah, email still works.
But also, I think that's important, Todd. Let's not underestimate the power of the digital. I know we spent a little bit of time talking about how those physical reminders are so important, but I'm an immigrant. So I came to Canada 14 years ago, and I have always had to rely on the internet and my phone to connect with my family and friends from around the world. And like you, I have many stories of OER collaborators that I've never met in person. Christina Hendricks, if you're on the YouTube, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in March. But we can really build a sense of familiarity with one another through email, through discourse, through any other technology. And I think that's the beauty and power of what we're trying to do here.
That's well said, Apurva, because that was like my whole career was like working with people I actually never got to meet, but many I did, which makes it even better. And I think it's really important to say that because there's a lot of connections that would have never been made were this platform, this internet did not exist. So thank you, Tim Berners-Lee and everybody else. I don't know. I don't have an ending here. We still have time. I think Todd mentioned like Natalie Tessler, and I forget where I crossed paths with her. And so sometimes there's those things where you interact with someone from a different space and you go, wait a minute, I knew you from here. Or you see two people interacting who you think are from completely different realms, but they're having that crossing. And those are like small scale things that happen. It happens in these platforms that we use. It happens outside. It happens, by that power of just reaching out to someone and asking them a simple question. I think, like, I don't know about you, but like when I get a question out of the blue that's like earnest and genuine and of interest, it like makes my day. Like I'll stop working on that document that I need to turn in because it's a connection from someone new to me.
I think those online interactions are really important for when you do eventually have the opportunity to meet in person. I have so many email conversations going on and informal Zoom sessions or meetings scheduled, and I enjoy all of those. But then when I eventually get to meet that person, whether it's at a conference or some other get together, I would love to find funding to get more people together. For me, it creates an even better connection to have that build up to that in-person meeting. I don't know if everybody else has experienced that or feels that way.
Yeah, I remember years ago at an open education conference back, I think it was at the DC one, and this isn't related to me, but somebody came up to me and said, I know you're at BC campus, I'm looking for this person. And they showed me it was Clint Lalonde's like WordPress profile, but it's a picture of Clint Lalonde when he was like 8 years old. And he's got these like funky glasses and he's like, do you know where I can find this person? And I'm like, oh, right. So I will introduce you to the 45-year-old version of this guy. And, but it was just so great, getting to sort of make that connection for that person because they had been talking to the person online for so long. And then I always love it when you've been communicating with somebody online, but you only know them by their email address, and their email addresses are always so weird. So like if I ran into Heather, who was working at a different community college, and it was like, oh, are you H Blicher 2256, and yeah, so those are nice. I like that.
There are handles. It harkens back to the wrong era, but I always remember this column by Clive Thompson, the writer for Wired, when Twitter first came out, and he called it, and I had to look up this word, it creates social proprioception. And proprioception is that physical feeling when you're in a room with people and you pick up information that's not words. And so what happens is what he's saying was you pick up these random things. It happens like, things in Instagram. So, I follow Amanda and I know when she's doing her, trans Canada trips, and when people's kids are playing volleyball. And so what it means is you pick up these peripheral clues about people that you file away. And when you get to meet them, you can move beyond the getting to know them. You can have the conversations. And I think that still happens quite a bit.
Yes, I think we all need to set up communities where our pets can be networking together, because I think that's my primary way of remembering who is who.
That's right. If Maren and I get together, we're just talking about dogs. Oh, I don't know. This has been so wonderful. I really appreciate, talk about email. I just emailed all of you out of the blue, hoping a few might show up, and everybody said yes. And so I really appreciate that.
Let me just embarrass you one more time.
Stop it. I'm going to mute you.
I think community is about connections, and you are like the great connector. You work hard. You work tirelessly at connecting with other people. And I think that the reason we all said yes is because we all acknowledge that that's true. And so, yeah, there you go.
Todd, I owe you. I owe
job,
you
Alan.
American money. You're very kind, but really, the connections make connections. So, like every time we have an interaction, like I know, I want to pick up and pick up the things that you're finding, because we can't do it all. So, and that's sort of like what Open Education Week is supposed to happen, because there's too many things going on. And that's why Heather's idea for the ambassador program has been great, because I've been picking events that I normally wouldn't have time to go to, and showing up. I went to one yesterday, and I was one of 2 audience members, and it was fantastic. And so we don't always need big crowds to have those useful connections. Who wants to have the last word? I've been talking too much, except Todd.
I'll just say thanks for connecting with me. I had reached out because Alan joined the Zulip, and I knew was really active in the OEGlobal community. And so we had a conversation that I think was part of what led to this. So thank you all for joining. It's really wonderful to learn from folks who have been doing this for a bit longer.
And I wanted to say thank you to Heather for introducing me to the ambassador program, because I hadn't heard of that before. So I'm really glad, Heather, that you mentioned that. I'm a big fan of the Open Education Week. It's always been a really big highlight of my practice. So thank you for introducing that. I shall look into that more for next year.
And for Amanda, when you're driving across country next time,
I don't know, Alan. I don't know if you know, but we do have you're on our stop, so I need to reach out to
Okay.
you about
Okay.
yeah. No, we've already talked about that. So yeah.
Perfect.
If anybody else has a driveway longer than 45 feet, just let me know. I'll be swinging by.
Oh, we have it. We have your 220 voltage plug-in too.
Great.
Oh, I'm so honored and pleased that we could have this conversation, and let's have more. And I will thank you, people listening and watching out there. That's meaningful too. The stream will end. They'll play some music, and then it'll stop, but we'll still be here. Bye, and thanks.